Back here live in Houston, Texas, here near the Galleria area. You're looking at the Chevron Towers, one of the beauty spots here in the city. Always busy here in the fourth largest city in the United States as the summer heat really begins to kick in here. We launch a new football season just around the corner. Welcome back to the 2018 Southland Conference Football Media Day here again from the Post Oak Hilton near the Galleria Entertainment District. We'll be here all morning previewing 5 teams. We'll take a short break. We'll come back in the afternoon for 6 more as we get you ready for a new football season. We begin this morning with our coverage with the Colonels from Nichols. Take a look. All right, quick look at the Nicholls Colonels, and a pleasure to be joined on stage by the head coach of Nichols in his 4th season, Tim Rebowe. Tim, welcome to Houston. I know it's been a fun off season. I know as a coach, you're ready for the play some football and get this season underway. I'll hand it over to you, and again, welcome to Houston.
Yeah, thanks. It's always great to kick off the 2018 Media Day, and so many good coaches in this conference and so many good players in this conference. And I think it's a fantastic experience that we do this and these players have a chance to be on this stage and represent their programs. It's just great for these young men. I'd like to, first of all, thank Tom and his entire staff for putting this on. They do an outstanding job every year. And I just have one request that try to keep Nichols first. If we can keep doing that, I like getting up here and kicking it off. It seems like so long ago that we had the playoff game in November. And yet I can't believe how fast the summer has gone by. I mean, it's just it's flying, and the coaches have been talking about that. We had an early spring ball. We had lots since then. You know, we gear everything around Mardi Gras where we are. So we went to spring early. Since then, there's been lots of weights, lots of conditioning, and I know our guys are now ready to get back on the field into some team activities and get back into some team setting stuff. Again, I think it's an advantage as a coaching staff. We have most of our staff intact, and to have our offensive coordinator, Rob Christoffel, and our defensive coordinator, Tommy Ryback, going back at it for a 4th year, I think just helps with the consistency of the program. And then we also have the core group of coaches still with us, and I think that's very, very important in getting the message to our players. We do have a veteran team coming back. We got almost 50 lettermen. We got 18 starters coming back offensively with the quarterback and the production at running back and receivers. But we also know it all starts up front with the offensive line. Defensively, we returned a bunch of core players on defense too that made great strides last year. And just like offense, it starts up front, and we got some veterans at linebacker in the secondary. We have to find some depth on that defensive line. I think we got to try to find some production at the tight end spot. Special teams, we got All-American kicker back, and we have our deep snapper back, and we have to find us a punter to fill that spot. Some season expectations as we move forward. You know, we have 14 guys that picked all conference, and then learned today we picked near the top of the conference. That's quite an honor. A lot of guys have been playing as a freshman, and they deserve that. But I will tell you this, each one of them, to a man, would say they would trade all that in for a chance to win the conference and to go to the playoffs. So we have to keep everything in perspective. Every coach is going to come up here and talk about their schedule, that it's a tough schedule, what it's going to be. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is we got to play them one game at a time. And then hopefully you do play your game and you can get in and be playing for something meaningful coming at the end of November. With that, we're getting ready for fall camp and get going, and I'll turn it over if we got any questions moving forward.
All right, very good. If you have any questions for Coach Rebowe, raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. I'll start it off with you, Coach, as the microphone works its way over. It's been a culture change since you arrived there on campus. Just describe what that has meant for you now in a 4th season And, of course, you have a playoff appearance this past year as well to build on that.
You know, for only the fourth time in the history in the playoffs and the host one forever, it says a lot for the city. It says a lot for our administration and what they did. And it was a great atmosphere, and I think we led, you know, in that first round in attendance. You know, it just shows how far. But we do want to not make that such a rare occurrence. You know, we talk about that. Let's try to get back to the playoffs if we can again and try to win us a conference championship. I think what it is to it, it's just all your program moving in the right direction, and it takes everybody. And it's not just the coaching staff, it's the managers, the trainers, the administration, the athletic director. If we're moving all in the same direction and we're moving all in one way, then we'll have a chance to be successful.
All right, if you have any questions, again, raise your hand, and we'll get a microphone to you. You've got one here in the front to state your name and affiliation.
Yes. Coach I.C. Morrell, Port Arthur News. You just talked about the fanfare from last year's playoff. Can you talk to me also on the field? What did you guys learn from that playoff game?
Well, you know, if you look at the season, it was kind of a microcosm, that game, of our entire season, where we won 8 games, but we had a lot of close games, a lot of close battles. Some of them could have gone the other way. We had some last-second victories, and then we had some last-second defeats. So, you know, we preach all the time about playing, and every coach does, and playing to that last whistle, to that fourth quarter, and find a way to come out on top. But, again, I think learned from it is turnovers is a big part of this game, and if you can come out on that plus end, which we didn't, then you have a chance to win a bunch of games.
Get any questions, raise your hand. We'll get you a microphone. I'll ask another question, Coach. Some of these players, and we'll hear more from Lincoln and a couple of your star players that are here with us today in Houston. Talk about your offense. Let's start with that and the job and the way your quarterback, Forcade, has really developed to be a leader on the field for you guys.
Well, anywhere I've been over the years, if you have a returning a quarterback coming back, you have a chance to have some success. Chase is going to be a 3-year starter, coming into this year. He'll be his 3rd year starting. He's made tremendous strides. He's had a great offseason in summer, and I think he's ready to take that next step in the leadership role.
And as good as he's been, you look at the numbers from a year ago, your offensive line probably didn't get enough credit. I believe, if I'm correct here, they allowed only 20 sacks all year. A nice job of protection.
Yeah, and it starts with our center, Ryan Hanley. Will be a 4-year starter. He's here with us today. We got 4 of the 5 returning. Chandler Arsenault, All-American, Eddie Houston. So we got some guys up front that do a good job in protecting him. And then, again, you got to be able to run the football, and we do a good job of that too.
Any questions out in the crowd? We got one right over here. We'll get a microphone to him. You can state your name and affiliation, please.
Coach, Mike Eckenheimer with The Advocate. Forcade and Tabry, obviously there's been a lot of talk there. Their friendship, their rivalry kind of goes back even before college. I mean, is that good for the sport, good for the team to kind of have 2 namesakes of the programs kind of go at each other like that, have some history?
I think it does. Look, we always, it's good for the state of Louisiana, it's good for South Louisiana, them playing against each other in high school, them going to camps. They work together at the Manning camp again this summer. I think it adds a little bit to the rivalry. And then, the way the game ended with McNeese last year is going to add a little bit more fuel to it. But those guys are such competitors. I see them in the same light. And they go at each other a little bit off the field, too.
Sheldon Nichols, Baton Rouge Advocate. Tim, how much did it help your team to have close calls with A&M, A&M last year, Georgia the year before? How much did that build confidence in your kids?
I think it's a constant. Our guys always want to prove, and I think every coach knows that at the FCS level. They want to prove that they could play, and they could play with the big boys. But our guys, I got hats off to them. Never intimidated, no matter what stadium they went into. Always thought they can win. You like that attitude that they can win and compete in every game. And our guys did that. And I always go back and I keep saying in those big games, it starts up front. And if you can have some success and you have a little depth on those offensive and defensive lines, that's where you can play with those guys.
Any more questions out? I want to ask you one other question, Coach, before we toss it over to Lincoln Rose. 7 100-yard rushing games last year, 4 different guys attributed to that. Talk about the run game and the running attack behind Chase. Is part of the weapons you have on offense with the O-line, quarterback, and that running attack.
Well, again, offensive line, but our running back was by committee last year. We had some guys, Dontrell Taylor, he was banged up a little bit, and here comes Kyron Irvin, and he gets hurt. We had another young man, Jeremy Rounds, who was off to a great start, and he hurt a knee, and then Todd Smith came in and filled in. So we had some guys injured. We had some guys step up, but I just think it's the system, and the guys know that no matter who they put in there, that we'll be able to create some yardage and make some holes and let these guys move the football.
What do you like most about your defense coming back to a new season here? You've got some playmakers back. Soley's in there. You got Kenny Dotson, a host of others.
Yeah, you know, Hezekiah White, our linebacker here, is a 6-year guy with us. Right. He kind of runs the show there with Alan Pittman, and he gets those guys in the right places. I think football is on defense is a big attitude, and I like what Coach Rybeck does with that. We keep it simple for our guys, and it's about tackling, getting to the football and tackling, and creating some turnovers, and I think we're going to do a good job of that this year.
All right, very good. We'll talk with Coach again here in just a couple of moments. Right now, we continue our coverage of the Nicholls Colonels. Right now, players will be joined on stage as we talked at the beginning of the broadcast. Lincoln Rose will be interviewing star players from each program throughout the morning and afternoon. Let's toss it over to Lincoln right now with more on Nicholls.
Yeah, and Randy, for the first time, we do get to talk to student athletes here in the Southland Conference, and Coach Rebowe was talking about veterans coming back, all he had returning from last year's postseason squad. Of course, appropriately, we have a couple of seniors. Hezekiah White, the standout linebacker, and, of course, the senior center we heard talking about, and Ryan Hanley. But Hezekiah, he just mentioned 6-year senior. That means you go back before Coach Rebowe was even in Thibodaux. 2000, your freshman year, I should say, 0 wins that year. You have seen the full progress under Coach Rebowe. What has this turnaround been like last year, FCS playoffs?
It's been wonderful. You got to give a lot of credit to Coach Rebowe with that. You know, he came in and he wanted to change the culture around in Thibodaux, and I think he's done that. Him and his coaching staff have done a wonderful job. They've come in and they always preach winning. You know, so that was a big thing for me, just coming in and preaching winning. And you know, you talking about we lost every game that my freshman year, and now we're in the playoffs.
FCS playoffs again, and you're right there at now number 2 in the preseason poll. Some extra motivation. That championship may be within reach your final year in Thibodaux. And of course, up front, Ryan, you heard them talk about 4 different guys run for 100 yards in different ball games. It's a next man up mentality behind you in that backfield. What's that like for an offensive lineman? You never know who's behind you, but you know what the job in front of you is.
Right. Our running backs, they're very close with the offensive line, and that's what I like. They come to all our meetings. They're trying to learn what we're doing, so they know what holes they have to hit, and they take pride in knowing what we're doing. So our running backs, that's a great group of people, and couldn't ask for better running backs.
Again, to reiterate the change that has occurred in Thibodaux this year, 14 preseason all-conference players suiting up for Nichols, 10 of them first team, including these 2 guys. But there's something in the water just outside of New Orleans. That's where Ryan went to high school. Chase Forcade was the quarterback behind you. Sounds familiar. Of course, the standout receiver and Damian Jean-Pierre Jr. Those guys all from Archbishop Rummel with you, and all 3 of you preseason first team all-conference Southland this year. What has this whole process been like growing up together, having goals together, and making a difference at Nichols?
We're just, we're all friends. We all mess around with each other, but playing with Chase and Damian again it's great. We had good, amazing coaches in high school who always taught, winning is the thing to do. So when we all came here and when the culture was changing at Nichols, I thought it was a good thing for us 3 to be together.
Hezekiah, we heard Coach answer a question about those matchups against SEC opponents the last 2 years when you kick off your season against some tough teams. But from the player standpoint, going into those games and what you all were able to do in the past couple of years, What has that been like, then shifting that momentum into conference play and getting success?
I think it's been great for us in our program. You know, it's putting Nichols on the map. You know, you go down to the wire with 2 elite SEC teams. It was great for us, but you got to give a lot of credit to the guys. You know, they always came in, you know, ready to win. And you got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff. They always came up with a great game plan to put us in a position to win. We just couldn't pull them out, sadly, but it was a great opportunity for us.
So last question before I let you two go. You are number 2 in the preseason poll, so we get to talk about possible championship on the horizon for the Colonels. On the offensive side, what's the difference between last year a team that goes to the playoffs and this year a team that captures a Southland ring before returning to the postseason?
This whole off season, we've been working hard. We've been meeting hard. We've been doing everything. We've been doing more than what we did last year, because we know where we were last year, but that was last year. We're looking forward to this season and see what happens.
And on the defensive side of the ball, Southland offenses are not exactly easy to even slow down, as we have seen over the years, some of the most prolific teams in the country. What is the challenge for a Nichols defense this year?
We just been working and meeting, trying to take that next step as a defense, building that chemistry. You know, every year is going to be different. You're going to have different guys coming in, but we're building that chemistry up, and I think that's going to be the big thing for us, and just going out there and being consistent.
What's the legacy that you'll leave behind after 6 years?
It started out a little rough, but thanks Coach Rebowe and his staff, we changed the culture around here. I love Thibodeau. You know, the whole community has come out and support us, and I appreciate them.
Again, it is simply incredible, Randy, what has happened there as Coach Rebowe arrives on campus. Almost immediate results over the past few seasons, including last year, the culmination with the playoff run. And I know everybody's excited for the season to finally kick off here in 2018.
All right, Lincoln, appreciate it. Great interviews. I know the guys are excited about this new season. A few minutes again in with Coach Rebowe before we wrap it up and take a break. But, Coach, you guys start practice here. You report, on the second? Right. First practice is the third. I know you've got it circled on your calendar. What is your big message to your guys? Because you won 8 games a year ago. Expectations are high. You've got, a lot of guys on the first team all preseason. I mean, expectations are probably higher than ever in Nichols.
I think, first of all, when we report on the second and we start practice on the third, is we got to realize we got to take care of ourselves. And we can't worry about our schedule and who we playing down the road. I think we got to take care of Nichols. So, again, there'll be a lot of fundamentals, a lot of blocking, a lot of tackling. Every team is different, so you have to get through. We have to establish some chemistry on this team, and we have to get a little bit, find out who some of the leaders are, and then you got to find out and create some depth. Everybody wants to start, but we got to find some of who these role players are going to be.
It's great for competition.
Exactly right. And with a bunch of guys coming back like that, it does increase the competition. You're always trying to add more and more to it. I think the big message that we're going to have to get to the team is we're in some new territory with so many players you mentioned on the all-conference team and picked to be second in the conference. But I think the message is going to be the same. What we have to do is we have to stay true to who we are. We got to understand what got us to this point, about working hard, staying humble, staying positive, all of those things. And we cannot, and we talk about this as a team, we cannot be distracted by the outside noise. And that's the thing with some of these things it might be outside noise. So we got to realize if we do that, we know what our brand is, and if we do that, we're just going to keep punching and keep fighting.
All right, let's talk about your schedule. A lot of people look at this schedule for Nichols. You haven't shied away from playing some big-name opponents over the last couple of years. You're opening at Kansas, then you've got a road trip there to New Orleans against Tulane. Then McNeese, Sam Houston State. First 4 weeks, pretty tough as we take a look at it on the screen.
Yeah, and when you look at it, 3 out of the first 3 are on the road, and then you come home against, the league champion, perennial power, Sam Houston. But, the games, the schedules are made so far in advance. I think it's great for us to go to Kansas and our guys to get on a plane and see how we stack up. First time ever, we'll go to New Orleans and play Tulane. Nichols and Tulane has never played. And then going down to McNeese, you know how good they are. They've been in the history of their program. So, and they're going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder for us coming in there. So,
A great game a year ago when you guys opened.
the only part I don't like about it is having 3 games on the road and then coming home for your first game at the end of September. But you can't control that because you play those non-conference games scheduled, and then the conference schedules when they come out, but you got to play them one at a time, and you don't get to pick when you want to play them.
What has it done for your program to play at Georgia, to play at Texas A&M, not to mention the rigorous schedule you see throughout the Southland Conference? What has that meant for the Colonel program?
I think it helps in all, but in the recruiting too. You know, it gave a little bit of credibility to the Nichols logo. When you go places, the guys remember that, and you go into schools now, but not just in football. When you go to those places, it is a 3-hour commercial for your university and for your school, and then when you put a good product on the field, when you do that, it helps the total program.
All right, closing thoughts before we take a break. Again, I know you've had a busy spring. Are you coming out of spring happy with some of the progress you guys made as you prepare for this new season?
Yeah, I think it's ongoing, and I like what our guys have done in the weight room. Coach Greg has done a great job with our guys, and he has them fine-tuned, ready to go. With this veteran group, we're looking forward to opening day.